Hey guys, ArtisanTony here. I just made a video about this and I was kind of ticked off, to be honest with you. So I decided to redo it after I calmed down a little bit, which is always a good idea, right? I'm still trying to put my finger on what is wrong with some people with regards to, this thing where it seems like they are for freedom, but only for certain categories of life, or for only certain people, or for certain things. And I guess as humans we're like that. We call ourselves freedom fighters, but really what we're fighting for is our own, it seems to me like, our own little program. I'm a gun lover, so I'm going to fight for my guns. Really, we should be fighting for freedom as a whole. And the best examples, and the ones that drive me nuts, obviously, and you've heard me talk about this before, but I'm still trying to put my finger on it, is this whole notion, or this whole attitude towards capitalism and business. And I think part of the problem is that there's a lack of education in our country when it comes to the free market system and capitalism. And I'm talking about actual down-to-earth knowledge, not just big picture finance, labeling this and that. I'm talking about down-to-earth actual information. So what I thought I would do, for those who are willing to listen, and sadly the people who really need to hear all this probably won't hear it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just going to go through some things here just to try to help people understand what businesses go through. So obviously when a business starts up, it has startup expenses. And if it's like my business, a lot of people, I use my own money for that. I didn't go to the government to get a small business loan. Now I understand that some people do have to do that because they're looking at a large scale project, and that's fine. But I'm just saying, a lot of your small businesses are just people taking a chance out of their own pockets. So they have those costs. They also have the initial business cost of say, whether you're going to be an LLC or be incorporated. Those, each state will have their own cost associated with that. Depending on what type of business, most of the time you will have a license. We're a general contractor, so I'm licensed by the state of Tennessee to be a general contractor. Most businesses will have some sort of license that they have to deal with on an annual or biannual. Thankfully, the contractor's license is renewed every 2 years, but it's still something that I have to do and pay for. And one of the next biggest categories that you find with small business is insurance. And this is one thing that a lot of people don't understand. The insurance cost, especially for a construction company, or really any company really, is tremendous. We have workers' comp insurance. This protects you from injuries on the job. It also sets up safety programs for hopefully how to prevent injuries and what happens and what kind of claims the value of those when they do happen. You have liability insurance. This is especially for contractors, and again, all businesses have these expenses. Don't just think it's just contractors, but if one of my subcontractors or employees, burns down a house, I have liability insurance, or that's just the first thing that came to my mind. But we have insurance for liability reasons. If I build something and it falls down, then I have. Thankfully, that's never happened. But we have insurance on our equipment, our vehicles, any kind of heavy equipment that we have. Those are just really three quick categories of insurance. Then you go into taxes. Each year, businesses pay franchise and excise taxes. That's usually based on, there's usually a flat fee, and then you'll have sometimes it's based on the type of business. It may be a percentage of what your revenue is, or it may be based on the revenue. Then we go into another big one, payroll taxes. This is another thing that people do not understand. the employer pays half of your Social Security and half of your Medicare. When I write a check to one of my employees, he only pays half of that. The employer pays the other half. Unemployment insurance. This is something that the employee does not pay one dime of. The employer pays 100% of the unemployment insurance. So that if you work for him for a certain amount of time and you're eligible and you become unemployed, become laid off, you can go draw apparently 2 years worth of unemployment. And guess what? That employer's unemployment insurance premiums go up. Every time someone draws unemployment on his policy, his premiums go up. And every company has a rating. So the next time you're griping and moaning about the company that you used to work for and you're drawing unemployment, just remember he paid for that. Now this is one that's a little bit hard to understand. Personal property tax. In other words, it's a tax on things that you own. Say you lease an office and you have equipment or whatever, or, all that. It's a tax based on property that the business owns. Then you have city and county business taxes, which is basically like a small franchise and excise tax. The municipalities want their cut of taxes too. So every year, when you just have to fill out one tax return, I have to fill out one for the state, the federal government, the city, and the county. And somebody has to be paid to do that. I have to pay an accountant to do that. That's another overhead cost. Then you have just simple overhead costs like fuel. I filled up my truck yesterday. It cost me $100. Basically, it was $98.75. You might as well say it cost $100, and that is just regular gas. That's not even premium gasoline, and that'll last me about a week. We have tools that we have to buy for each job, and if you've seen any of our videos where our shop, you'll see that we have industrial table saws, band saws, lathes, shapers, router tables, you name it, drill presses, ready alarm saws. It's all there, and all that stuff we had to purchase. Some companies have uniforms they wear. That's another cost, another overhead cost. We have the cost of maintaining tools and equipment. My truck has to have oil changes, tires, all that stuff. My truck right now has 140,000 miles on it. Pretty soon, it's going to really start eating me up in overhead just to maintain it. We have rental equipment that we have to rent. If I need to dig a trench, I'll go rent a trencher. And those things have to be maintained. If I rent that thing for a week, I have to maintain it while I'm renting it, or when I turn it back in, they inspect those things, and you better believe they're going to charge us if we don't. So, I made a few notes here, and those are just a few categories. There's no way that I can list all of the overhead costs. It's funny. Just last week, I was trying to save a customer some money, and I went to Ace Hardware and I bought some conduit, and I realized I didn't have my cutters. So I bought some cutters and some glue, and I went to the job, and I actually saved the customer $100 by taking the initiative to put this conduit underground to run a wire out to a place where we're going to have this lamp post. Well, when I do my pay request, my invoice, I can attempt to put those cutters, those tools that I bought, which were specialty items. I'll probably maybe use them once a year. I'll try and I'll request that the owner pay me back for those, but they can always turn me down. And those kinds of things will nickel and dime you to death. So where I save the owner money by not having to worry about the electrician, I eat the overhead cost to do that item. And this happens every day, all the time. And this happens in every industry. Take your gun industry. I sent my Boberg back to Artie Boberg twice, and he worked on it, and he actually broke it in. I think he spent 200 or 300 rounds breaking it in for me. which basically he did it a favor. And who paid for the ammunition? He did. Who paid for the time? He did. When you bash capitalism, when you bash business, a lot of times you have no idea what that business is going through. You have no idea what is behind the cost of that item. When you go to Walmart and you see, ammunition prices have gone up. You see, $20 for a box of 100 22 long rifle. That $20 is divided 100 ways. Trust me. There is not one person making $20 off of that box of ammo. If you see me defending capitalism and you get mad, then you'll just have to get mad. But I'm looking at the entire picture. I'm not just looking at the gun industry or the fact that I love guns. I love my country as a whole. What this boils down to is that whenever I try to price a project or I try to give someone an hourly rate, somehow I'm supposed to take all of this overhead costs into account. And what we deal with in the industry is just like, say, Cheaper Than Dirt dealt with in their industry, where people have these assumptions on what an item should cost. In other words, when someone hires or calls me up and asks me to give them a proposal, they already have in their mind an assumption of what something should, how much they should be paying one of my guys or me to do work. Sometimes they're surprised that it's a little more than what they assumed, but they usually hire us anyway because we did great work and we've got a great reputation. The thing is, in the case of, say, and I'm just using Cheaper Than Dirt because it just comes to, it's the one that obviously comes to mind. Only the owners of Cheaper Than Dirt know what goes into getting a magazine to your house. They know how much it costs, what their overhead is, all the equipment they have. I don't know what kind of brick and mortar situation they have as far as property. Every business has its costs, its overhead costs. They also are the only ones that know what they will have to pay or might have to pay for a magazine in the future. When I hand a customer a proposal for a project, everybody, and I haven't met anybody in my 35 years, whatever it is, that will say, wow, that's cheaper than what I thought it was going to be. It's always more expensive, but when I sit down and explain to them the costs that we deal with on a daily basis, the overhead cost and what it actually costs us to get the job done, the changing fuel costs, the changing material costs, changing tax codes, changing, withholding. I mean, it's just endless. It seems endless as a business owner, the overhead costs. I still don't think anybody is harmed. If you are that person that paid $60 for a magazine, then you were either ignorant of the cost of magazines or you just had some extra cash and you felt like buying them from Cheaper Than Dirt. So nobody was harmed in the incident. The only people really that were harmed was probably Cheaper Than Dirt because they probably lost customers over it, which is fine. Everybody has the freedom of choice on both sides. You're not the only person that has the freedom in this country. You have the freedom of choice to buy. They have the freedom of choice to sell or not to sell. Just try to have an open mind. Just try to think of things objectively. Because I don't consider you a freedom fighter. If you think you're a freedom fighter because you're fighting the government against gun legislation, but then you come out and you bash capitalism and free markets, well, I don't believe you. And it doesn't matter whether I believe you or not. I'm just saying other conservatives don't believe you either. They may not be saying anything about it, but they know. A true conservative can spot someone who is not a conservative. And it doesn't. You may say, well, I don't care. You got to understand that you're not fighting for freedom if all you're doing is fighting to keep your guns. That's not the definition of fighting for freedom. If you're gonna fight to keep your guns, that's fine. But I consider someone fighting for freedom using that gun to keep our free markets available to all people. And to all people, I mean by those people who want to start businesses and who want to take the risks of losing everything that they have to do so. And once they have that business started, I want them to have the freedom to price their products the way they want to. And then if they don't sell, so be it. They fail. But you're not harmed by that whole thing. So anyway, this is a long video, and I'll never get my 100% of my point across or communicated, but maybe I've gotten some of it across. So anyway, I know this was kind of a long video, and it'll probably make some people mad, but honestly, I've gotten to the point where it's really gotten too far. I've pandered to people really long enough, and tried to be nice and tried to be polite and all that. I think it's time that the true conservatives step up. Really, honestly, it's there's a lot of liberals that love guns, and I talk to them apparently a lot because they only have. You find really quick that when you start talking to them on a regular basis, you realize they're just gun lovers, and that they're not. They have nothing else in common. And you realize, you say, I've been friends with these people and it's fine and I'll stay friends with them, but all this time you thought you had a friend that was of like mind, and really you find out that all you had was a friend that liked guns. And that's the only thing you have in common. And that's fine, but I try to respond to everybody who comments on my videos, but it's becoming harder to do that. And all I mean is that I'm not going to be debating this too much anymore in the comments like I do now. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you as usual, and I appreciate everybody who watches. I do appreciate that. I'm not trying to isolate myself from liberals. I love the debates. It's just that at some point, you got to say, look, enough is enough of this stuff, and really put your foot down. And if we're ever going to accomplish anything, we can't just fight for our guns. We have to fight for freedom as a whole. But that means the definition of freedom is you allowing other people to do as they see fit, not as you see fit. So I guess that's one of my definitions of freedom. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching, and I welcome any comments and feedback in the comment below.